The CEO's son hacked into my account, so I gave him access to fake files I built myself. The next day, I got promoted. But don't jump to conclusions. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys revenge. I just did what had to be done to protect the company and to remind a few people that integrity in media isn't a hashtag. If you've ever had to work with someone who believes the rules don't apply to them, tell me where you're watching from because you're going to want to hear this story. My name is Maya Tran, 31, Associate Creative Director at Lighthouse Communications, a New York agency where caffeine is a religion, drama is the native language, and the idea of a Saturday exists only on the company culture slide. If you've ever worked at an agency, you get it. We live by deadlines and die by briefs. One week you're winning awards, the next you're watching a client kill your concept without blinking. Still, before Tyler Brooks showed up, I believed in one simple rule: talent gets recognized, fools learn. Tyler broke that rule. He was the son of Eleanor Brooks, Lighthouse's legendary founder, the woman Adweek once called the Iron Lady of storytelling. Eleanor could close a seven-figure deal with one glance and 3 PowerPoint slides. She didn't smile often, didn't waste words, but when she told you to do something, you did it because she was always right. I admired her until Tyler walked in. Fresh out of Harvard with an MBA, a resume longer than an insurance contract, and the swagger of a man convinced the world was waiting for his rebrand, he dressed like a walking Esquire spread. Pale blue shirts, Italian shoes, and that smile, the kind of smile that's never heard the word no. On his first day, HR had to extend his desk just to make room for his ego. That same week, Lighthouse was gearing up for a massive pitch, North River Airlines, a multi-million-dollar account that could put us on the global map. Every department was stretched thin. Eleanor herself handpicked me to lead the creative team. Maya, she said, you have the sharpness and realism that big clients need. I trust you'll bring North River home. That was the kind of compliment you save in 72-point font on your resume. Then came the day Tyler was introduced. Eleanor entered the conference room, Tyler right behind her, grinning like the spotlight was his birthright. This is Tyler, she said. He'll be joining us on a few strategic projects. He brings a young perspective and fresh insights from Harvard. I think we can all learn something from him. I swear I heard a collective sigh ripple through the room. That first week, Tyler was like a summer storm, loud, messy, and entirely uninvited. He showed up at every meeting, tossing around words like brand synergy, cultural velocity, and authentic disruption, impressive until you realize they meant absolutely nothing. Once, during my presentation for North River, the find, your horizon concept, Tyler cut me off halfway. That's nice, he said, smiling like a man who'd once read a book about creativity. But what if we make it less emotional, more data-driven? People love numbers. I gave him the polite smile every creative learns, the I'm killing you in my head, but keeping it professional smile. By Thursday, he appeared at my desk with a cold brew in hand. Hey, I took a look at your pitch deck, he said. It's solid, but I think it could use a fresher vision. I'll refine your narrative deck a bit. Refine? I asked. Yeah, he nodded confidently. I know how big this pitch is. Eleanor wants the best, right? So I'll polish it. Just share access with me. I'll handle the narrative. In this industry, you know trouble the moment it walks up to your desk. I looked at him, wondering if he even knew what refine meant, or if he just liked using it as a hashtag. Sure, I said. But the file's still in progress. Don't move things around too much. Don't worry, he grinned. I know what I'm doing. Funny thing, people who say I know what I'm doing rarely do. That afternoon, he blasted an email to the whole team, updating brand narrative for North River, bringing fresh air to old strategy. CC, the entire executive board. I frowned. Announcing your interference to upper management isn't exactly how you bring fresh air. Later that evening, as I was packing up, he leaned on my desk like it was his stage. By the way, he said, can you give me full access to the creative folder? It'll be easier to make edits directly. Less back and forth, you know? Full access? I asked. Yeah, trust me, I'm not going to break anything. I've heard that line 100 times, always right before something breaks. I granted him view only access, but he frowned. Oh, come on, Maya. I can't make narrative tweaks if it's view only. We're on the same team. Something inside me, instinct, experience, maybe trauma from being blamed for missed deadlines, whispered, "This is a mistake." But he was the CEO's son. I couldn't exactly say no. I typed a few keys and changed it to editor. Fine, but don't mess with the structure. It's synced to the master file. Got it, he said, beaming. You'll thank me later. I doubted that. That night, back home, I opened my laptop to check the file. A small note blinked in the corner. Last edited 10 minutes ago by Tyler Brooks. I froze. 10 minutes ago, meaning after I'd already left the office. I clicked version history. Titles had been changed, taglines deleted, and my main line, Find Your Horizon, had been replaced with, We bring the sky to you. I stared at the screen. It sounded more like a dry cleaning service than a global campaign. I sighed. Okay, Maya, I muttered. Either he's experimenting creatively, or he's testing my patience. I didn't know whether to laugh or get angry, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. I'm not the kind of person who checks emails after work, but advertising changes your reflexes. You start jolting awake at the sound of a late night notification that says urgent, client feedback at 11 p.m. That night, I had just turned off the lights when my phone buzzed. An email from Lighthouse's internal system appeared. Subject: Security alert, unrecognized login attempt. Device: Tyler B. laptop. Location: Executive floor, Heim. 11:07 p.m. I blinked. Tyler B. laptop? That couldn't be a coincidence. I tried to stay calm. Maybe the system glitched. Maybe Tyler had just opened the wrong file by accident. But in this company, every accident shared the same pattern: someone getting ready to lie. I powered my laptop back on, logged into the internal system, and checked the activity log. It was true. Someone was inside my account, viewing the folder North River Pitch Final. I sighed. Of course. In that moment, you want to scream into Slack or call HR and say someone's hacking my account. But if you've ever worked in an agency, you know exactly how that ends. They'll call you dramatic, or worse, say you don't know how to collaborate. I chose the other route, the one agency survivors use after 3 CEOs. Handle it yourself, but leave a paper trail. I texted Jules, head of IT, and the only person I actually trusted in the building. Jules was the kind of genius who once hacked the office coffee machine just to change its ringtone. Maya: Are you still at the office? Jules: Yeah, cleaning up code like spring cleaning. Why? Maya: Can you check the logs? Is anyone in my account? Jules: Hold on. 2 minutes later, she called, her voice caught between curiosity and excitement, like she was watching an action movie. Yeah, someone's in. Executive floor. Device name, Tyler B. laptop. I stayed silent. Well, hello, golden boy, Jules whispered. Want me to lock him out? No, I said, calm enough to scare myself. If we block him, he'll know he's been caught. I need to see what he's doing. Jules sighed. You know this could get risky, right? I know. But if he steals the North River files, the whole company could lose the contract. And if I interfere, I lose my job. So what's the plan? We'll do it by the book. Jules chuckled softly. You mean set a trap? Call it an ethics test. So we sat down, one ethical, one technical, and launched a midnight operation powered by stale coffee. A honeypot. That's the term Jules used. It sounds sweet, but it's pure digital bait. A perfect copy of the original folder, identical on the surface but filled with fake data. Not illegal, just misleading enough to reveal who takes the bait. I didn't want to do it. But if someone was trying to use my name to steal credit, then either I proved it or I'd be branded uncooperative in the next project meeting. I reminded Jules, no deleting real data, no defamation. We only logs the access. Relax, she said. I'm a hacker with morals. We began building the honeypot, a clone version of the North River pitch deck, every slide subtly tweaked, enough that anyone who used it would expose themselves. ROI bumped from 12% to 28. Tempting, but impossible. Project timeline shrunk from 14 weeks to 6, suspicious to any client who could count. A few concept images pulled from unlicensed stock libraries, and the campaign tagline changed from Find Your Horizon to Fly Freely with Us. Sadly, a line Delta Airlines had already used back in 2018. At first glance, everything looked perfect. To anyone who actually worked in marketing, it screamed amateur hour. Jules kept typing, smirking. If you ever quit creativity, you could join intelligence. Even hackers aren't this elegant. You forget, I said. In agencies, we're all spies. We just do it for deadlines. By 3 a.m., the honeypot was complete. Jules set up an automated system. Any unauthorized login would be silently rerouted to the fake folder. She yawned. All set. If he logs in again, I'll see it. Thanks, Jules. Don't thank me yet. You might have just opened Pandora's box. 2 days later, I acted normally. Tyler still strutted around the office, still patting shoulders like a Harvard mentor, still copying his mother on every email. Sometimes I wondered if he knew that I knew. That afternoon, I reviewed the real pitch to make sure everything remained intact. Every time I saw the slide Find Your Horizon, I smiled. It now felt like a mirror reflecting someone's conscience. Friday night, on my way home, my phone buzzed. A text from Jules. Oh, Jules. Fish took the bait. Maya, you sure? Jules. 100%. 11:11 p.m. Executive floor. File name North River Pitch Final .pptx. I pulled over, staring at the glowing screen. It was real. Tyler Brooks, the CEO's son, the guy who said we're on the same team, had just used my credentials to open the fake file. No malware had breached my system. They'd done it through privilege. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling, thoughts spinning. If I report him, they'll call it jealousy. If I stay silent, he'll steal the team's work. This wasn't personal anymore. It was about ethics, the backbone of what we do. Lighthouse loved to preach integrity in storytelling. We helped clients tell their truth, and yet inside this company, someone was rewriting mine to serve himself. I got up, opened my laptop, and pulled up the log file Jules had sent. At the bottom, a small note blinked. Access confirmed. Data copied. I leaned back and smiled faintly. Well, Tyler, I whispered, you want to play creatively? Fine. I didn't know if I'd just taught a lesson or started a war, but one thing was certain. I wasn't the only one telling this story anymore. Monday. Coffee in the kitchen ran out before 9 in the morning, a sure sign that an important meeting was coming. The main conference room at Lighthouse was packed. Eleanor Brooks sat at the head of the table, holding an iPad, her face calm like someone who could steer a storm with a look. Next to her, Tyler wore a new suit and smiled as if this were his own talk show. The meeting opened with the familiar line, "Let's talk about our creative direction." As I expected, 5 minutes in, Tyler took over the stage. He stood, walked to the whiteboard, and wrote in big letters, "Authenticity, human storytelling, cultural velocity." His voice boomed with confidence. Modern customers don't just buy products, he said. They buy emotion, story, and cultural value. That is why we need cultural velocity, the speed at which we sync with consumer life. A few people nodded, not because they understood, but because they did not want to look dated. I sat quietly, watching the scribble on the board. In my head, one sentence repeated, "He just spoke for 3 minutes without saying anything." The meeting ended with polite applause. Tyler bowed and smiled. Eleanor gave a brief praise. "Good initiative, Tyler." And me, the one who actually wrote that strategy, smiled like someone watching another student copy their test in front of the proctor. The next midday, the whole company got an email from Tyler. be@lighthouse.com. Subject: Transparency Initiative, sharing our creative vision company-wide. The opening sounded like a PR memo. To help everyone understand the new direction for North River, he wrote, I am sharing the strategy we are developing. Transparency is the key to success. Attached, as I feared, was the honeypot file. The fake deck, full of mistakes, wrong numbers, and that tagline Delta had used years before. Jules sent me 3 words. He really did. I opened the file and read slide by slide, equal parts astonished and amused. He truly believed it was the real document. Within 10 minutes, the office buzzed. The Slack channel #general exploded. Wide eyes, question marks, and a steady stream of "this is fine" memes filled the thread. That afternoon, Eleanor sent an all-staff message. Thank you, Tyler, for your initiative and willingness to share, she wrote. Transparency is a value Lighthouse cherishes. I read the line on my screen and felt a chill run from my neck to my spine. Initiative. A softer way to say he unilaterally published confidential material. Everything spun out fast, and I, the person stripped of control, suddenly became the one who was not sharing enough. Rumors move faster than a recently approved concept. Maya is hiding documents. Tyler is about to lead the North River pitch. Is there a feud between Maya and Tyler? In an agency, gossip spreads quicker than a deck gets approved. That afternoon, I made coffee in the pantry and overheard 2 interns. Did you see Tyler's email? They said, those slides are fire. Yeah, one replied. It seems like. Maya does not want to share. I stood behind the wall, closed my eyes, and breathed in. Not angry, just tired. My phone buzzed. A message from Jules. You are being watched. Your account access spikes every night. I read it again and again. I did not reply right away. Then I sent one line back. Let them look. I have nothing to hide. 3 days later, the conference room lit up again. A stack of printed notices sat on the table. I did not need to read to know the content. Eleanor looked around, her voice clear and sharp like a scalpel. To harness the energy of new creativity, she announced, I have decided to let Tyler lead the North River presentation next week. Maya will support him technically and ensure everything runs smoothly. A few people applauded. A few looked at me, waiting for a reaction. I only smiled. No objections, no explanations. One sentence echoed in my mind. Fine. If he wants to stand in the light, let the light shine directly on him. When people left the room, Jules came over and asked softly, You okay? I said I was. Do you have a plan? She asked. I do. But this time I will not lift a finger. I folded the notice and put it in my pocket. Walking out of the meeting, I felt the anger leave me, only the calm of someone who already knows what is coming. Because when people climb too high on a ladder built from lies, one small slip is all it takes to fall. The night before the presentation, the office felt like a ship waiting for a storm. The lights stayed on. The coffee machine ran nonstop. The swivel chairs all turned toward the projector screen like an audience before a ceremony. Jules and I sat at the small IT desk in the hallway corner, 2 glowing monitors, 2 cold cups of coffee. She was buried in code. I was buried in slides. We were working toward the same goal with different tools, logic on her end, narrative on mine. The honeypot was now sealed tight, polished like armor. Jules fine-tuned the script, added triggers, and built logs detailed enough to print a full FBI report if we had to. I organized every slide, checked each number and each sentence. We knew how to create a convincing illusion and how to lace it with flaws just subtle enough to expose themselves under an expert's eye. I told Jules I wanted the bait to look polished, good enough to fool a surface reader, but guaranteed to collapse when someone tried to defend it in front of specialists. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, eyes gleaming. She added a warm-sounding ROI formula built on ridiculous assumptions. She shortened the project timeline to 6 weeks and slipped a tiny footer note saying the vendor contract was still pending. She dropped in a few stock photos we hadn't licensed yet. When she ran the test, everything looked smooth, beautiful even, not like something an amateur would make, but exactly like something an overconfident beginner would proudly present in a boardroom. I didn't sleep. I read and reread the real slides, comparing them to the fake ones. The real deck was grounded, sensitive where it needed restraint, humble where it needed grace. The fake one was dressed up to deceive, Jules texted, "I've added a trigger alert in case it gets downloaded." "Good," I replied. I looked at the clock. 3 in the morning. I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking about everyone on the team who had spent sleepless weeks fixing copy lines and visual assets. If he dropped the ball tomorrow, the damage wouldn't just be one slide. It could cost us the contract, the client's trust, maybe even the company's credibility. I was betting our entire reputation on this. When everything was ready, I wrote an email draft to Eleanor, clear and factual. Someone is accessing my account. The logs show Tyler's device. I created a mirror environment to monitor it. I recommend a private meeting before the presentation. I reread the message, my finger hovering over send. Then I deleted it. It wasn't time. The reason was simple. If I sent it now, the meeting would turn into an inquisition. They'd ask why I suspected the CEO's son. They'd circle the wagons. I didn't want a cover up. I wanted the truth to reveal itself on its own stage without me saying a word. I wanted him to ruin himself with his own hands. The next morning, the building pulsed with energy. The receptionist greeted guests, the catering set, up snacks, and the engineers tested microphones. Pressure hung in the air like static. Everyone presenting wore practiced smiles and just serious enough outfits. And Tyler, he wore a navy suit that fit perfectly, hair slicked back, eyes scanning the room like he owned it. He walked in as if stepping onto a TED stage, upright, radiant, ready. While people adjusted microphones, Tyler made the rounds, shaking hands, smiling. Everyone saw confidence. And that kind of confidence is exactly what makes people slip. I stood off to the side, outside the core team, far enough not to be accused of meddling, but close enough to feel the room breathe. I heard the faint shuffle of papers, the click of the remote, the tense inhale of the account manager. Everything seemed normal, too normal. I told myself, if today's a show, I'll let him perform it. Not because I wanted him to fall, but because I wanted the truth to speak for itself. I wanted the clients to feel the difference between a story built with craft and one assembled with privilege. Sometimes our job is to perform. Sometimes it's to let the performance collapse so the truth behind the curtain can finally be seen. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Eleanor entered, took her place at the head of the table, and looked around the room. She gave Tyler a small, approving nod, a mix of pride and expectation only a CEO mother could deliver. Tyler gripped the microphone like a man accepting an award. I stayed where I was, lips curved into the faintest smile. Inside, my chest was a blend of anticipation, fear, and a strange kind of pride for the team that had built this, for Jules who had created the perfect trap. I thought of all the nights I'd endured, the late iced teas, the last-minute slide fixes. All that work wasn't just about winning a pitch. It was about preserving the integrity of a craft in a place where privilege could overshadow everything. Tyler stepped up. The lights brightened, the projector came alive, and his voice flowed smooth as glass. I adjusted the pin on my jacket, steadied my breath, and waited. Waited to see whether the truth would speak on its own, or whether we'd have to speak for it. The conference room blazed with light. Everything looked flawless, almost fake. The North River Airlines logo glowed on the giant screen. White tablecloth stretched across the long table. Bottles of water lined up so neatly it felt like a wedding rehearsal. The lighthouse team sat upright, smiles perfectly measured. Jules was in the control room, monitoring the logs. I sat at the far end of the table, laptop open but untouched. No need. I had already done my part. Now it was his turn. Tyler stepped forward like the headliner of the show. The lights caught his navy suit, his smile as bright as a stage spotlight. His voice flowed smoothly and rehearsed, every inflection deliberate, like he'd practiced in front of a mirror. "We're redefining storytelling in the airline industry." It sounded like something written for a LinkedIn post. The North River clients nodded politely. Eleanor, the CEO, his mother, nodded too. I leaned back, silently counting slides in my head. He clicked on the second one, market analysis. Clean typography, sleek charts, soft pastel palette. No problem. Until he reached the implementation timeline. A low voice spoke from the head of the table. The North River technical director, a silver haired man whose eyes had dissected hundreds of proposals, tilted his head. 6 weeks? Really? The air in the room tightened. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Tyler gave a light laugh, the kind of laugh from someone who thinks confidence alone can fix anything. Yes, 6 weeks. We believe in fast, agile, culture driven execution. The technical director didn't smile. He flipped a few pages of notes and studied the details. 6 weeks to rebuild your entire digital infrastructure across international markets. Impressive or impossible? A fragile silence. Then the North River CFO joined in. 28% ROI in the first year. May I ask what model this is based on? Tyler blinked. Just a second, but enough for me to see the crack in his confidence. He said, "We used a proprietary model combining automation metrics and customer retention data." The CFO cut him off. What data specifically? Tyler hesitated. Internal data. Can you share it? He forced a thin smile. Maybe. In the appendix. The tone of the room changed instantly. Eleanor leaned forward, fingers interlaced, her expression turning sharp. The clients began flipping through their printouts. Then the legal counsel looked up, voice calm but firm. Excuse me, but these images, have you purchased the rights? Because I recognize one from Getty's free archive. Silence fell. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Tyler's face flushed red. He tried to laugh it off. Probably just a placeholder image. Our creative team must have missed updating that one. A brittle laugh. No one joined in. Eleanor looked at me, eyes searching, silently asking what was happening. I stayed still. No reaction, no defense, no need. The CFO closed his laptop with a quiet thud, his tone cutting like a blade. If this is your final proposal, I have to say it lacks verification. The numbers, the timeline, the copyright issues, all careless. I saw Tyler's hands tremble slightly. His voice dropped. Maybe this wasn't the final version. Maybe there was some internal mix-up. He turned toward me, his tones sharpened, full of accusation. You did this, he whispered. I replied softly, eyes fixed on the screen. You opened it yourself. He froze. Eleanor glanced between us, unsure what that brief exchange meant, but she could feel something cracking beneath the silence. No one spoke again. The room felt as cold as a server room at midnight. My phone buzzed. A message from Jules. Confirmed. He downloaded the honeypot at 11:11 p.m. I typed back. Got it. Eleanor broke the silence, her voice calm but lined with steel. I think we need to pause and review this internally. Then she turned to the clients, switching on her CEO smile like flipping a switch. Thank you for your feedback. We'll make adjustments and follow up soon. The North River team stood, polite but wordless. The door closed behind them, leaving a heavy stillness behind. Eleanor stayed seated, hands clasped, staring at Tyler. He bowed his head, sweat collecting at his temples. I stood, gathered my laptop, and said nothing. No one needed to. The silence said it all. As I stepped into the hallway, I could feel the stares through the glass. No laughter, no applause, only the echo of my footsteps cutting through the air. I stopped by the door and took a long breath. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me hurt. Because when a presentation collapses, no one really wins. Not the client, not the company, not the team. My phone buzzed again. Jules. Guess the tsunami just hit. I texted back. Yeah. And we're standing right on the shore. Then I walked away, back straight, never looking over my shoulder. The conference room door closed behind me, and I knew from that moment on there was no going back. The small conference room on the 17th floor, door closed. No one inside but Eleanor, Tyler, and me. The air felt heavy, like someone had drained half the oxygen from the room. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, posture straight, her gray-blue eyes as cold and still as water before a storm. She spoke slowly, each word sinking like lead. Maya, What do you know about this? I took a deep breath and set my laptop down. My hands didn't shake. 4 years in this industry had taught me how to stay calm in a crisis, even when the crisis was the boss's son. I have proof that my account was accessed without authorization, I said, opening the log file Jules had sent. Every login came from the device labeled Tyler B. laptop, all after 11 p.m. The data downloaded was the North River folder. I turned the screen toward Eleanor. The blue log entries blinked, each one a tiny cut against someone's integrity. Tyler leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. He gave a short laugh, half arrogance, half defense. I did it to protect the project, he said. She was withholding files. I just wanted to make sure everything went smoothly. I'm the one responsible for the client, remember? Eleanor said nothing. She just looked at him. The silence was so thick you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I spoke evenly, my tone sharp as glass. Protecting doesn't mean stealing, and it definitely doesn't mean impersonating a coworker. Tyler shot up from his seat. You set me up. I protected company data. By humiliating me in front of a client? No, Tyler, I said, still meeting his eyes. You did that yourself when you presented the fake deck. He narrowed his eyes. You planted those mistakes to make me fail. I created a mirror to see who would cross the line. You made that choice. Eleanor raised her hand. Enough. Her voice wasn't loud, but it silenced both of us instantly. She looked from me to her son. We can't sit here blaming each other. I need a solution. Maya, can you present the real version? I nodded. I can, but this time I want to make sure we're doing what's right, for the client, not for anyone's ego. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, then gave a single nod. Go ahead. I opened my laptop and connected it to the screen. The first slide appeared. Clean, focused, real. No flashy slogans, no 6-week miracles, just a grounded strategy built on truth and data. I spoke clearly, without embellishment. North River's vision is to connect people emotionally to the sky. But emotions don't come from speed. They come from trust, and trust is built through consistent experience. Eleanor listened, chin resting on her hand, her expression slowly softening. Tyler stood beside her, silent now, and I spoke with every ounce of professional conviction I still had left. When I finished, the room stayed perfectly still. Eleanor said one sentence, the client needs to hear this. That afternoon, an emergency meeting was set up with the North River team. Caroline, their CEO, walked in with the poised confidence of someone who'd survived 100 boardroom battles. Eleanor began briefly. We'd like to clarify a few points and present the version that truly reflects Lighthouse standards. Caroline nodded. I'm listening. I stood up, clicker in hand, not trembling. Every eye turned to me, including Tyler's. He stayed in the corner, silent, the Harvard shine gone from his face. I spoke with precision, every word grounded like a stone laid on solid ground. What you saw earlier was an unverified draft. This is the official version, built on real data, practical timelines, and fully licensed assets. The slides appeared: passenger behavior analysis, brand experience strategy, 14-week implementation plan, projected ROI at 16%. No glamour, no exaggeration, just clarity. We don't promise the impossible, I said. We only promise what we can deliver, better than anyone else. No one interrupted, no dramatic pauses, just truth. Caroline glanced at me, then at Eleanor. She flipped through her notes in silence for a few seconds, then smiled. Honesty sells better than illusion. A quiet line, but it swept through the room like wind clearing fog. Eleanor nodded, her eyes shining with something between pride and regret. Tyler stood motionless, his shoulders lowered. No one needed to add anything. The meeting ended. North River agreed to reopen contract discussions. Caroline shook my hand and said softly, "You're the one I want in future meetings." Eleanor said nothing, just looked at her son for a long moment, an expression caught between anger and sorrow, as if she wasn't sure whether to blame him for failing or herself for putting him there too soon. I packed my laptop and gathered my notes. Before leaving, I said quietly, "We build brands on truth. We should live by it too." Eleanor gave a small nod. Tyler lowered his head, silent. When I stepped into the hallway, Jules was waiting with a coffee cup in hand. She asked softly, "All good?" I smiled. "It will be. Someone just learned the hardest lesson of their life." Jules raised an eyebrow. "And you?" "I learned that honesty isn't always easy, but it's always worth it." We walked together down the bright hallway, the wind brushing through the tall glass panes. A new day had begun, and I knew, from this moment on, my story was finally mine to tell. The next morning, the lighthouse office was unusually quiet. No laughter, no heels clicking across the floor, only pale sunlight spilling through the glass walls, touching desks that still smelled faintly of yesterday's coffee. I had just set my latte down when my phone buzzed. An internal email appeared on the screen, simple and direct. Eleanor Brooks, meeting, 8:30 a.m., executive floor. I took a deep breath. The caffeine hadn't fully kicked in, but my heart was already one beat too fast. I knew this meeting wasn't about deadlines. The top floor conference room was wide, bright, and cold. Eleanor sat there with an iPad in one hand and a thin folder in front of her. No Tyler, no one else. She looked at me, calmer than yesterday, and somehow that calmness was more unsettling than anger. "North River sent an email this morning," she said. I straightened up. "And?" She looked up, voice quiet but clear. "They signed the contract, the full version, your version." I exhaled, long and slow. Not relief exactly, more like the echo that follows a storm, when the thunder's gone but still ringing in your head. "Congratulations," she said. "You saved the company, and maybe you saved me too." I stayed silent. Eleanor set the iPad down and turned toward the window. "It's been a long time since someone here had the courage to tell the truth, to do the right thing. I let family blur the line of fairness. I let personal ties influence what should have been decided by competence." I looked at her and for the first time didn't see the ice-cold CEO everyone feared, just a mother facing the cost of her own choices. "I don't hate Tyler," she continued slowly, "but I can't let him represent this company's values if those values are built on deceit." Then she lifted her gaze to me. "I want you to take a new role, Director of Brand Storytelling." I blinked, unsure how to respond. She smiled faintly. "Not because you're the smartest person here, but because we need someone who can tell the truth, not just what looks good." The room fell quiet. I said softly, "Thank you. I won't let you down." "I know," she replied, nodding once. Then she opened the folder and turned the first page. "Tyler will be reassigned to Junior Account Coordinator. He needs to relearn everything: process, clients, humility." Her eyes hardened, but her voice trembled just a little. "It's punishment, and his last chance." When I stepped out of the conference room, the hallway was still silent. Jules was waiting at the corner, holding two hot coffees. "You survived?" she grinned. I smiled. "Not just survived, got promoted." Her eyebrows shot up. "Director? Seriously?" "Yeah, sounds fancy, but it probably means more work." She laughed. "Congrats, Maya, you earned it." I walked past the workstations. People were typing quietly, pretending not to know what had just happened. But the air had changed. No longer the tension of the old days, just the stillness that follows a heavy rain. At the far end, I stopped. Through the frosted glass, I saw Tyler packing his desk. His jacket folded neatly, laptop tucked into his bag. No one helped. No one spoke. He didn't look angry or defiant, just tired, the kind of tired that comes from finally facing yourself. I stood there for a while. There was no satisfaction in me, only a faint sadness, like watching a chapter end long after it should have. He looked up and caught my eyes through the glass. No avoidance, no defense, just a brief, silent nod. I nodded back. Then he turned, lifted his bag, and walked out. The door closed softly behind him, no echo. Back at my desk, I opened my email settings. Under my name, a new title appeared: Director of Brand Storytelling. I didn't feel proud, just grounded. This industry teaches you that every story needs an ending. But what no one tells you is that the real ending doesn't come when someone fails. It comes when someone finally learns the lesson they spent so long avoiding. I opened Slack and messaged Jules. "What's our next deadline?" She replied, "A beverage campaign. Theme: truth in every drop." I smiled and shook my head. Perfect. I opened a blank document and typed the first line. The truth always leaves a final taste. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally telling the right story. 3 days later, the lighthouse office was back to its usual rhythm: meetings, project boards, the sound of printers. It was as if the storm had never happened. But I knew some storms don't end with rain. They end with silence, with someone finally admitting they were wrong. That Wednesday afternoon, I went down to the pantry for coffee. The small room was filled with the soft hiss of the espresso machine and the smell of Arabica beans in the air. I was picking a mug, half thinking about the new campaign, when the door opened. Tyler walked in. No tailored suit, no Harvard smile, just a white shirt with rolled sleeves, loosened tie, and tired eyes that didn't look away. I nodded slightly. "Good afternoon." He nodded back. "Hey, Maya." We stood side by side for a few seconds without saying anything, only the quiet drip of coffee between us. Somehow, that sound felt more honest than most meetings I'd ever sat through. Tyler broke the silence first. "I used to think that if I failed, my mother would finally give up, that she'd stop expecting so much, stop looking at me like I was an unfinished project." His voice was hoarse, worn. The arrogance was gone. What remained was something achingly human: the fear of not being enough, of not being loved for who you are. I stayed quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Failure doesn't kill you. Not learning from it does." He looked at me, surprised, then gave a small, genuine smile, the first real one I'd seen. "You think I still have a chance to learn?" "Of course," I said. "Everyone does. The difference is, not everyone has the courage to start over." He lowered his head, his voice almost blending with the machine's hum. "I'm sorry for taking your account, for thinking that being the CEO's son meant I could walk faster than everyone else." I looked at him. The anger was gone. That fire had burned itself out the morning Eleanor gave me the new title. When I realized forgiveness isn't about letting someone else off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from bitterness. "I don't need your apology," I said. "I just need you not to do it to anyone else." He nodded. "I won't. I want to learn how to do things right." I took a sip of coffee and smiled faintly. "Then start with 3 words: ask, learn, and earn." He raised an eyebrow. "Ask, learn, earn." I nodded. The order matters. People in this industry who forget that eventually get defeated by themselves. He went quiet, eyes on the floor, thinking for a long moment. Then he looked up and said softly, "Thank you, Maya." I didn't reply. I just turned away, holding the cup in my hands as the steam rose. The smell of coffee, the soft yellow light, and the hum of the machine blended into a peace this company rarely knew. I stopped at the door and glanced back. Tyler was still there, leaning on the counter, head bowed. No longer the smug man from before, just someone beginning again, from the ashes of his own mistakes. I walked back to my desk. Outside, a light rain began to fall. Raindrops hit the glass and slid down, as if trying to wash away the dust of the storm. I opened my laptop, skimmed through a few client emails, and paused at a note in the campaign brief. "The truth never goes out of style." I leaned back in my chair, eyes tracing the ceiling. A thought crossed my mind, not to be spoken, but to be remembered. Real success isn't when you defeat someone, it's when you stay true to yourself, even when you have the power to strike. I took another sip of coffee, bitter but real, just like life. A week after that fateful meeting, life at Lighthouse slipped back into rhythm. No tense conferences, no darting glances, Just the sound of keyboards, the smell of morning coffee, and small, lunchtime conversations floating through the air. I sat by the window on the 15th floor, watching the traffic below. The city kept moving, loud, hurried, indifferent to whatever corporate drama you'd just survived. But I wasn't the same. I had just taken one of the biggest turns in my career. From someone who only wanted to do her job well, I had learned how to stand up for what was right. From someone who preferred peace, I had become someone willing to confront privilege. And more than anything, I had managed to stay myself. Sometimes I think every workplace story revolves around the same axis: power, ambition, and the thin line of ethics. But if you look closer, they're just lessons wrapped in drama. I came away with 5 of them, what I call 5 ethical survival rules for the modern workplace. 1. Boundaries protect everyone. Boundaries aren't walls, they're guardrails. Don't be afraid to say no. Sometimes no is the only thing keeping you from being used. 2. Ethics isn't a weakness. Integrity doesn't make you soft. It's the backbone of professionalism. Cheaters move fast, but the honest ones move far. 3. Preparation beats privilege. No one outruns preparation. Tyler had the Brooks name. I had sleepless nights and a color-coded checklist. In the end, truth won, not bloodlines. 4. Revenge is loud. Integrity lasts. Revenge earns applause for a moment. Integrity earns respect that stays. If you want a quiet victory, let the truth speak for you. 5. Be kind, but not blind. Kindness isn't blindness. Forgiveness is strength, but blind trust is a weakness. Balance both. That's the art of surviving office life. By Friday, my team threw a small party. No flashing lights, no imported wine, just cold pizza, cheap champagne, and laughter that felt real. Jules raised her glass. To the woman who turned office drama into a case study. The room burst into laughter. Someone played Don't Stop Believin', an old song, but it hit differently this time. I checked my phone. A new email from North River. Subject line, Welcome aboard, Lighthouse. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. No fireworks needed. Sometimes welcome aboard is all the proof you need that you did the right thing. When the party ended, I lingered for a moment, looking around the office. The yellow light fell across idea boards, half-finished mood boards, and chairs dusted with pizza crumbs. A messy scene, but real. And I thought, this is the kind of story I want to tell. Not perfect, not Netflix cinematic, just a story about people trying to do the right thing in a world that makes the wrong so easy. I grabbed my coat, turned off the lights, and looked at the company logo reflected on the glass. Lighthouse Communications. The name might be old, but the meaning never fades, to shine through the dark. I smiled. Sometimes that light doesn't come from the CEO or the brand name. Sometimes it comes from one person who refuses to bend in a storm. If you ever have to choose between safe and right, choose right. If someone ever steals your credit, let the results speak, because truth doesn't need a microphone. It has its own volume. Thanks for listening. I'm Maya, the one whose account was stolen, now leading the entire brand storytelling division. If you've ever survived an office drama, tell me your story in the comments. I want to know what you learned, or at least how you didn't lose your mind. And if this story just popped up in your feed, maybe that's fate. Hit subscribe. I've got more workplace chaos to share. Burned deadlines, burned brainstorms, and sometimes burned HR too. Deadlines calling. See you in the next video.